the WNBA has created the magical storyline.
It's official. The Indiana Fever just broke the WNBA. In a matter of days, they went from playoff hopefuls to championship favorites, and fans and the media are losing their minds. But not everyone's celebrating. There's a growing crowd like Jason Whitlock, convinced that this is all part of a master plan. They're suggesting the WNBA is pulling strings behind the scenes, setting up Caitlin Clark for instant success with a super team, and, get this, creating a racial rivalry to boost ratings. There are lots of theories floating around right now, most of them rooted in jealousy, drenched in hypocrisy, and sprinkled with wishful thinking. But there is a common thread tying all of the madness together. Stick around because the mental gymnastics the haters are doing right now are off the charts. But first, subscribe if you think the Fever are winning it all this season.
Indiana, which I think everyone agrees right now has gone from, a team that made the playoffs last year, lost in the first round. They were building all these young pieces, of course, Caitlin Clark, to now an immediate contender.
Okay, so the Fever didn't just make a splash in free agency, they unleashed a deep impact grade tsunami. Let's break down their acquisitions because, based on the intense reactions, they've transformed the Fever and could very well impact the trajectory of the WNBA. Let's start with Natasha Howard, a three-time champion and former Defensive Player of the Year who knows how to put points on the board. Then you've got DeWanna Bonner, a two-time champion and six-time All-Star who, like Natasha, is a consistent scorer and tough defensively. With these two alone, the Fever just got much better on both ends of the court. Not only does Caitlin the assist merchant have more offensive options at her disposal, the Fever's second-to-last ranked defense just improved dramatically. And then you've got Sophie Cunningham. Her sharpshooting will help the team spread the floor and create space for their stars to operate. And she's not afraid to mix it up. Between all these moves, the Fever just got a lot tougher to play against. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Fever managed to pull off all these moves while keeping their core intact. They re-signed Kelsey Mitchell, who put up 19.2 points per game last season, and still have All-Star Aaliyah Boston, who will only get better. They've got the offense, the defense, the championship pedigree, the young guns, and of course the biggest female athlete in the world. So naturally, everyone's talking championship. Because with this roster, that's suddenly a very real conversation. The Fever have gone from a playoff bubble team to a legitimate title contender overnight. We're not just talking about making noise in the playoffs anymore. We're talking about a team that could go all the way. But hold on, because not everyone's celebrating. Some fans and analysts are crying foul, calling the Fever a super team and saying the WNBA is rigging things for Caitlin Clark. But is that really fair? Because let's be real, this isn't the first time we've seen a team make big moves in free agency. But the reaction this time? It's on another level.
The WNBA has manipulated their offseason.
There's a growing chorus of skeptics asking the million-dollar question. How did a small market team like the Fever pull off such a massive coup? Some, like Jason Whitlock, suggest the league had a hand in orchestrating this whole thing. It's a bold claim on its own, but it's his reasoning that's got so many fans up in arms.
They got conflict between, they've created it, and I know there are black players on the Indiana Fever, but they've created conflict between black and white.
Yep, he's arguing that this isn't just about basketball. It's about the WNBA creating a racial rivalry for ratings. According to Whitlock, the WNBA is trying to manufacture a Bird versus Magic dynamic between Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. Somehow, by the Fever leveling up their roster, this is now a rivalry. Now, this take wasn't well received, with many fans calling out Whitlock for creating a divisive narrative that doesn't need to exist. The problem, and why some are believing Whitlock, is that we've heard this talk track before from someone pretty high up in the WNBA, the commissioner.
I'm a big studier of history, and I look back to the Bird Magic moment in the NBA in 1979, and it really put the NBA on the map.
Last season, Kathy Engelbert referenced the impact of the Larry Bird Magic Johnson rivalry multiple times, drawing a parallel to the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese rivalry in the WNBA. So when you hear the commissioner reference the same thing as Whitlock and the importance of rivalries being crucial to league growth, it's reasonable to think that the league would at the very least want a similar rivalry. For perspective, and it's tough to imagine now, but back in the late 1970s, the NBA was hurting. Attendance was down, TV ratings were in the gutter, and basketball was far from America's favorite pastime. But then something magical happened. Or should I say, magic happened. The arrival of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in 1979 wasn't just a breath of fresh air, it was a Cat 5 hurricane that blew through the NBA. These two rookies didn't just play basketball, they redefined it. And here's where it gets interesting. Their rivalry wasn't just about what happened on the court. It was a story that captivated America. You had Magic, the flashy point guard representing the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles, going head-to-head with Bird, the no-nonsense forward from small-town Indiana. It was Hollywood versus Heartland, and, as Whitlock and Engelbert alluded to, black versus white. The NBA recognized the gold mine they were sitting on, and boy, did they cash in. The league went all in on promoting this rivalry. Primetime games became must-see TV. The media coverage was relentless. Every matchup between the Lakers and Celtics was hyped like a heavyweight title fight. And guess what? It worked. TV ratings soared, arenas were packed. Suddenly, basketball was cool again. The Celtics and Magic dominated the 80s and set the foundation for Michael Jordan and the stars who followed. Now, fast forward to last year. The WNBA was growing, but let's be real, it hadn't exactly set the world on fire. Enter Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, college rivals. It was almost too perfect, and the league forced that rivalry down our throats. Their matchups were among the most watched games of the year. But if we're being honest with ourselves, pretty much every game Caitlin played was among the most watched games of the year.
Catch, fire, and connect.
As the season went on, though, you could just tell Angel and Caitlin weren't on the same level. Caitlin was setting records left and right, and after the Olympic break, she scored around 23 points per game. Yes, Angel had all those double-doubles, but she was also notorious for missing layups. As their teams went in different directions, their rivalry fizzled out faster than a sparkler on the 4th of July. Now, people think the league is shifting to a Caitlin versus Asia rivalry. On the surface, it makes more sense. Statistically, they're both powerhouses, and now, with the Fever's recent upgrades, both have strong supporting casts. But here's where we need to pump the brakes a bit. True rivalries can't be manufactured in a boardroom. They're born on the court, forged through intense battles and playoff showdowns. The Magic-Bird rivalry wasn't great because the NBA said it was. It was great because these two legends pushed each other to the absolute limit, year after year. Those guys had history. Their rivalry was like slow-cooked barbecue, years of intense competition, playoff battles, and personal stakes. It wasn't some instant ramen rivalry cooked up by league execs. Now, look at Clark and Wilson. Are they both incredible players? Absolutely. But do they have that same backstory? That same chemistry? Not even close. They shared the same jersey retirement date, but they've barely shared the court. Here's the deal. True rivalries need close games, playoff battles, and personal stakes. You need those moments where both players are pushing each other to the absolute limit. Those "I'm not letting you win" moments that make fans lose their minds. Sure, the Fever's moves might set the stage for some epic showdowns, but Clark and Wilson still have to deliver on the court. And that's not a given. So, can the WNBA recreate that magic? Maybe. But it's not as simple as just declaring Clark and Wilson rivals and calling it a day. The league needs to let this rivalry develop naturally. Yes, they can hype up their games, but ultimately they have to step back, let the story unfold on its own, and hope their teams are talented enough to facilitate matchups in high-stakes situations. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Is the league really pulling strings behind the scenes to create a Caitlin Clark super team? Or are we watching a masterclass in team building by the Indiana Fever? Let's break it down. First things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the WNBA salary cap. This isn't the NBA, where teams can just throw money around like confetti. The WNBA has strict limits on how much teams can spend on player salaries. So the idea that the Fever could outspend everyone else to create a super team, that's not how it works. They've got Clark, a potential league MVP, on a rookie contract for 3 more years. This is a rare situation that gives the Fever more financial flexibility to add top players. But here is where it gets interesting. Free agents have to actually want to play in Indiana. And let's be real, before Caitlin Clark arrived, Indy wasn't exactly a prime destination for WNBA stars. So what changed? It's simple. The Caitlin Clark effect. Suddenly, playing for the Fever became a lot more appealing. Can you blame players for wanting to team up with one of the most exciting prospects in women's basketball history? And let's talk timing for a second. It's not like the Fever made their moves before every other team. Major signings and trades were happening all over the league, with some of the WNBA's biggest stars going to destinations not named Indianapolis. I mean, was the league rubber stamping all of these moves to ensure the Fever got the best possible free agents? I think that's a reach. So what are we really looking at here? It's simple. Smart management and the gravitational pull of a generational talent. The Fever saw an opportunity with Caitlin Clark, and they went all in. They used their cap space wisely, made some savvy trades, and suddenly they're the talk of the league. That's not a conspiracy. That's just good business. And don't get me started about the super team talk. A lot of people are simply using this argument to discredit Caitlin's success in advance. In the NBA, for example, super teams are criticized because they create an unfair advantage, allowing ring-chasing superstars to win titles with less honor. The 2010 to 2014 Miami Heat with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. The 2016 to 2019 Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant joining an already elite 73-win team. The 2008 Celtics, the list goes on. So, by calling the Fever a super team, fans are making it so that if Caitlin Clark wins MVP or a championship, they can claim she had it easy, almost like she cheated. But here's where it gets kind of ridiculous. Did anyone cry about the Aces being stacked, winning back-to-back titles, and Asia Wilson being surrounded by Olympians when she won league MVP? The same goes for the Liberty, who were loaded from top to bottom, resulting in a championship last season. Did anyone put an asterisk next to their triumph? Well, okay, some people have, but that's because of that lousy foul call in the dying seconds. Look, I get it. Conspiracy theories are fun. They're exciting. They give us something to talk about. But when you really look at the evidence, this whole rigged league narrative is a bit of a stretch. What we're likely seeing is the natural result of a small market team finally getting their hands on a superstar and making the most of it. As I mentioned off the top, there is a common thread that ties all of this together. The blowback and conspiracy theories are all confirmation that the Fever won free agency. The haters know that these moves make the Fever championship contenders and give Caitlin Clark the supporting cast she's never had, which could lead to a breakout MVP season. Why is this so scary for some people? Just look back to last season. Viewership records, skyrocketing attendance, and record merch sales. The viewership of her playoff games dwarfed every other playoff game, including the finals. Caitlin single-handedly changed the trajectory of the league, and there are a lot of players and media folks who cannot handle the attention she's getting. In the past, to knock her down a peg, they've pointed out how other players are statistically better or have won championships to paint the narrative of a media bias. Now that Caitlin has a top-tier coach and a formidable supporting cast, the haters know there's a strong chance she could dominate statistically, win a championship, and remove these arguments from their arsenal, leaving them with no recourse other than to claim her success wasn't earned because she had a super team and it's all rigged by the WNBA. At the end of the day, the Fever made upgrades and players want to play in Indy because they want to win with Caitlin Clark. Based on the show she put on last season, can you blame them? No matter who you're cheering for, one thing's for sure. All eyes will be on Caitlin and the Fever this season. And if the offseason is an indicator, fans will be engaged like never before. If you got this far, drop a basketball in the comments so I can thank you personally. See you next time.